Hey, everybody, welcome to the Book Leads Impactful Books for Life and Leadership. I'm your series host and leadership performance coach, John Jaramillo. This podcast series is about getting to the books that have impacted the lives of the people in my network. So these are great leads that I'll be interviewing to get to those books. I want to get to those titles that have made the most impact on their lives, their leadership, the work they do, the business they conduct, their families. All those areas touch each other and intersect. So in this particular series, I cover three types or categories of books. The first category where they're sharing with me a book I haven't read. Second category where we're discussing a book that we've both read, whether specifically for the episode or in our past lives before the series. And then the third category is when I have the author and or publisher on to discuss the message of the book, the tone of the book, what they're trying to get out there for the masses to understand. And this particular episode, my guest today is Alan Lazaros. And at age 2, Alan's father passed away in a car accident. At age 26, after getting into a nearly fatal car accident himself, Alan questioned everything he was doing in life. He questioned who he was and the choices he was making. He was at an all-time low. Filled with regret, Alan searched for answers and found two of the brightest lights he had ever seen. The first bright light was a book by Bronnie Ware, entitled The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying, and the second was a TED Talk by Tony Robbins. Both of these resources helped Alan find his way and guided him to make the choice of going all in on self-improvement to design a life of meaning and purpose. On this self-improvement journey, Alan learned he believed in a heart-driven but no BS approach to inspiring, motivating, and educating others on what it really takes to get to the next level. Today, he's proud to say it is his mission to help others design fulfilling lives, maximize their own unique potential, and build aligned businesses they love on their own terms. Alan has a powerful combination of technical expertise and business acumen, specializing in peak performance, productivity, organizational design, and individual team and business optimization. He led a global team at NLU, has given hundreds of trainings all over the world, and has happily completed thousands of one-on-one coaching calls with clients. As he says, it would be his honor to help you get to the next level of your life, love, health, and wealth. And I had a conversation with Alan's business partner a few months ago, his partner in crime, Kevin Palmieri. In episode 103 of this series, we covered Mindset, the New Psychology of Success by Carol Dweck. We had a great time on that conversation. A lot of insights came out of that talk. So obviously it made sense that I should learn more about his partner in crime, Alan, and have him here for this conversation. So Alan, thank you so much for joining me.
What an awesome intro. Thank you for that. And I always like to start with gratitude. Thank you for having me. 9 years ago, I started listening to podcasts after that car accident that you mentioned, and they really helped me reorient my life in a much more positive direction. I think a lot of people feel nihilistic, hopeless, and aimless, and I think that content like this can really make a tremendous difference. So I'm happy to be here, and let's rock and roll.
Absolutely. And it's amazing how, you have these events that occurred in your life as young as 2, and then when you were older, your own personal, almost fatal car accident. But it's amazing how you go through all that and it shifts the perspective, can shift, because some people may fall to those nihilistic views. But it's amazing how much good can come from the worst events that might happen to us. But it is a matter of, I think having these kind of conversations and learning that there are other people out there that have gone through similar situations. It's not a matter of comparison, but sometimes we get lost in our own stuff, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fascinating that we can draw those lessons from those low moments in life.
The thing that I've come to understand, and I didn't realize this until my 30s, is because people would hear my story and briefly, father passed away at 2, stepfather left at 14, went from sort of upper middle class to completely broke. We weren't going to starve, but it was definitely, how am I going to go to college? And then just straight A's through high school, got my computer engineering degree, master's in business, off to the races, corporate, success, and then car accident. And then I flipped the script and realized I was deeply unfulfilled. But I have a very high ACE score. It's called Adverse Childhood Experiences, and there's a test that you can take. And ultimately, what I've come to understand through coaching so many people is they would say, I don't understand how you got here. How did that happen? How is it that some of the people that have had the worst circumstances imaginable end up some of the most successful and fulfilled people on the planet? Not always, but a lot of times. And the answer to that, I think, is self-belief. I've come to realize that if you don't have self-belief, those adversities that could be your advantage actually just end up being adversity.
So for you, before we jump into the questions, you mentioned like resilience, self-belief. Um, so was that innate in you? Because, nature versus nurture, was that innate in you? Or was it an example that you saw, even though these things were happening to you? Was it an example, a mentor, somebody you had in your life that kind of gave you those small, quick words of encouragement or long talks, whatever it may be? But where does that self-belief for you, where does that come from?
Well, I know my mom gave me a lot of lectures, and instead of just punishing us, she would really lecture us. And my sister and I used to kind of roll our eyes of, here comes another lecture. But the truth is, and this is really hard to really share publicly, I didn't start sharing this stuff until my 30s, is I had 3 advantages in life. And honestly, rewatching the movie of my own life and how much adversity I had, these are the only 3 I could find. And I think I look kind of like a silver spooner, right? White Caucasian male in America, well-educated, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, it was the farthest from the truth. I mean, if I were to show you what my childhood was, it would be very surprising to see where I've ended up. But ultimately, the 3 advantages I have that I'll be upfront about. Number 1, the self-belief piece. But I'm trying to figure out where that came from, because you asked me if it was innate. You asked me if it was nature versus nurture. And the truth is, the second one, so I won't talk about self-belief yet. I'll talk about the second one.
Mm-hmm.
The second advantage is, and this will resonate for a lot of people out there who do feel gifted. This won't resonate at all for people who are insecure that they aren't. I was born extremely intelligent. Growing up, this is scary to share, but I used to look around and I used to say, why is everyone else so dumb and so lazy? When in reality, I was really intelligent and really hardworking. I just didn't know I was on the far end of that bell curve. And so when you get older, you start to realize how extreme you are. And so straight A's in calculus classes without going to class, partying all night, like that kind of stuff. And if you are gifted, you basically hide it because it makes you not belong, and you're probably a social coward like I am. And so you probably have tons of self-belief but low self-worth.
Mm-hmm.
And you're probably good at everything, but people probably bully you a little bit because they're insecure about their own inadequacies and stuff like that. But ultimately, what I've come to understand is I had 3 advantages. Number 1 is self-belief, and I think it's because of number 2.
Okay.
Number 2 is just everything comes fairly easy to me when it comes to competence. The one thing that never came easy to me at freaking all was relationships. I mean, I'm not a very likable guy at the end of the day. At least that's what I've come to realize. But when it comes to
what does that mean? What does that mean? What's your take on that?
So I've studied a lot of the psychology underneath this. We all have if you study cognitive behavioral therapy, and I'm not a certified therapist or anything, but one of my clients, she's a main CBT therapist, and I've studied a lot of the modalities of therapy. Cognitive behavioral therapy, we all have a core limiting belief. It's a record playing in the back of our mind. Most people, I would say a large percentage of the population, my guess, and it's a guess, is 96% of the population, because I looked up in January of 2024, only 4% of people have written goals that they actually achieve. And that's the latest statistics on it. Yeah. And again, don't quote me on this, but ultimately I think 96% of the population doesn't really believe in themselves that much, but thinks that they do and acts like they do. And here's why. So you have the conscious, the subconscious, and the unconscious. I know people who think they believe in themselves a ton, but unconsciously they definitely don't. And then there's some people who think they don't believe in themselves at all, but they always take action and they grind behind the scenes when no one's watching. They actually believe in themselves a lot. And so my question to everyone is, why would someone with level 10 self-belief have level 2 goals? Everyone knows that guy in high school who pretended to have tons of self-belief, who really didn't have any goals. Mm-hmm. It's if you really do have a lot of self-belief, you will have goals inevitably, type of thing. So the 2 main core limiting beliefs are known as defective and unlovable. The record playing in the defective's mind is I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not capable enough. And that's a competence thing. And that's the large majority of the population. I don't have that at all. And if you're out there listening, you don't like me there's a part of you that doesn't like me because you know I don't struggle with self-doubt a ton. And it's scary to say that, by the way. That's competence. The defectives feel not good enough. They don't feel capable enough. They don't feel like they're good at stuff. Most stuff. I don't have that at all. If anything, I have the opposite, which is I'm going to be such a mirror that your insecurities actually are going to be triggered by me, and you're going to lash out and be mean to me for what seems like no reason. So that's the unlovable. The unlovable, their belief, unconscious limiting belief, is I'm a bad person. But they believe in their abilities a ton.
Yeah.
And so the unlovables need social courage because usually they're cowardly and they fawn and they don't tell the truth to people because they're afraid they're going to be unrelatable and not belong. And the people who are defective, I mean, they feel they belong easily. They feel likable. They usually feel funny, like they're funny and likable. And so those are kind of the two main modalities. And so to get back to the original question about self-belief, where did it come from? I think a lot of it was quantum abilities. I feel like a lot of it is just I believe in myself because I have so much evidence that I'm capable. And when I try things, they tend to eventually work out well. Mm-hmm. Now, the other piece of this is grit. And this, I think, goes hand in hand with self-belief, because when you have undying self-belief in tandem with massive adversity, both from setting high goals and from a tough childhood, you just develop so much freaking grit. And once you have those two, you mentioned resilience, grit, resilience are similar.
Yeah.
I mean, then you can really achieve a lot. Because Kev always asked me, he's like, how did you know we would succeed? I said, dude, somebody's going to be successful. Like, why wouldn't it be us? It doesn't even make sense to question it because you can't add that much value to that many people. We have 1,800 episodes. Like, we're going to win eventually. It's just a matter of time. But for anyone who struggles with the defective limiting belief, that sounds very arrogant.
That's a good, I like that breakdown. And it's incredible that you've come to be able to express that and kind of anticipate the way people may read into it. But at the same time, I love the fact that you're just honest, because you can speak to everything that you've just shared, and then we can have a conversation from there, instead of kind of it just being passive where I'm going to act my way, you're going to act your way, and we're going to wonder why we're not gelling or are gelling. But I thank you for sharing that. That's great that we kind of get that insight into who you are and where you come from. Now, in getting to the questions, who are you today in terms of, can you provide a little more information about the work that you're doing on a day-to-day basis? So before we jump into the book and the rest of this conversation, what's the work you're doing today? Can you give us some insight into that?
So my main thing today is business coaching. And I have this little thing called a G3 target. It's on my whiteboard over here. And it really, the idea of it is just stay on target, stay on target, stay on target. Every time you feel lost or directionless, you just go back to the target. So for me, it's podcasting, training, and coaching. That's why I call it a G3. It's the metaphor is your genius zone. And your genius zone is a combination of what's meaningful work to you, what are you ridiculously good at, statistically speaking, and then what can you actually get paid for? And so for me, podcasting, training, and coaching. Podcasting is 1 to scale, 1 to many. Training is 1 to several. And then coaching is one-on-one. And my favorite's one-on-one coaching. And the reason why is because casting a wide net for me is very hard, because a lot of that stuff I think is kind of fluffy. It's motivational speeches and all that. It's, you can do anything you set your mind to. No, you can't. Right. And neither
it's
can
more
I.
nuanced than that.
Yeah, it's much more nuanced. And
everybody, especially, and that ties into what you're saying with one-on-one coaching, because there's nothing cookie cutter that's going to work across a table or a room of people. Like, everybody has little nuance in terms of resources, time, the way that they need to hear a message, the tone that they need to hear. So that's a great point.
And their core limiting belief, their goals, their lifestyle, their resource, everything's different. So the medicine that will cure one patient will actually kill another. Some people hear you need to work hard, and they say, oh, some people don't need to work harder. That's not the issue. But for most people, definitely. And then you've got books like The 4-Hour Workweek, which I like the book, but Tim Ferriss hasn't worked 4 hours a week ever. That dude was grinding for decades, right?
Yeah.
there's this whole, so the one-to-many thing for me is challenging because I want to help people, and the only way to do that is to figure out where you fall on the bell curve, on the spectrum.
Yeah.
Like
Agreed.
work ethic is a spectrum. Are you Elon Musk 100-hour weeks, or are you lazy as shit? And the truth is, my advice has to be predicated on my awareness of that. It's like, Elon, you should probably sleep and take care of yourself. Dude. Seriously, what are we doing? And hey, lazy man, you need to be less lazy, right? On the other side. So for me though, what do I do now? Business coaching is my main thing. That's the thing that's most meaningful and the most profitable. And really what it is so I have 28 people on my roster currently. I've coached hundreds over the years, but 28 currently. Youngest 16, wanting to start a YouTube channel named Micaiah. Oldest 63, been in business for decades, already a multimillionaire. And everything in between, all different countries, all different backgrounds, all different cultures, all different industries. So for me, it's the ultimate learning machine because I get to study the global economy through individuals. It's the coolest thing ever, micro, macro. But ultimately, that's kind of who I am and what I am now. But underneath that, more than just the business coaching, there's these 4 sort of buckets that I think we all kind of fall in. Everyone falls in one of these. The first one is unsuccessful and unfulfilled. That's where we all start. I certainly was there. The next one is successful and unfulfilled. A lot of people are very successful in terms of financial acumen and wealth, but they're not fulfilled at all. They're not in love. They're not healthy. That's another big one. I have mentors that are multimillionaires. It's like, dude, why didn't you take care of your asset?
Yeah.
What are we doing here? And then the next one, and I was there too, pre-26 before my car accident. I was very successful, making almost $200,000 a year in my early 20s, 150 grand in an investment account, 84 grand worth of college debt paid off in a single year back in 2014, doing very well financially, external success, but internally I was deeply unfulfilled. Yeah. Then after the car accident, I flipped the script, went all the way past broke, happy, healthy, productive fitness model, fitness competitor, fitness coach, super fulfilled, but not successful. I don't know how I'm going to sustain it. And then the last bucket is both successful and fulfilled, which you know that you're there when you want your future to be an amplified version of what it already is. And so I want my future to be an amplified version of what it already is. So in 10 years, I intend on still being a podcaster, a trainer, and a coach. And for Kev, his is the flipped. So Kev is my business partner that you had mentioned. For him, it's podcasting first, and then he also is a coach. For me, I'm a coach first, and I also podcast. Gotcha. And you can probably tell the difference even just interviewing us both. Yeah. One of us is more likable. Let's just say that, right?
No, I mean, listen, I'm the type that kind of listens to all different types of personalities. I kind of step back and see who I'm dealing with, who I'm talking with, who's sharing from their life. So, I mean, I'm curious about all people. As long as you're not a hateful, violent person in the extreme. I mean, especially with all the bullshit that's gone on the last however many years. I mean, there's no need for me to jump in and judge anybody. So unless you're attacking me physically or verbally, whatever, I'm willing to talk to anybody, learn about anybody. I'm learning to appreciate the nuance in life and the humans around me. So I love you guys both. I love the work you guys do. I love what you're out to do and how you're out to help people. And that's why I asked you to both be here. So I love you both. Consider me a big fan.
I appreciate you. Thank you for that, John. I really appreciate it. I don't take that lightly because, it means a lot. It means a lot. It really does.
Alan, to understand how you ended up here, we've gone a lot through big points in your life. I read your bio. We automatically dove in because you put a nugget out there I was curious about, so I asked. But generally, to understand how you ended up here, can you give me a sense of where it started? You talked about your family a little bit, but how did your path start? Was it education? Was it before college? Can you tell me a little bit about your journey that had you end up here? Not that you thought this is exactly where you were going to end up, but what did your path look like? What were the influences to get you on that path, and then walk me through to now?
Yeah. So I'll try to give you the short version. So I often joke, I say I'm hoping to hit puberty at 36.
Yeah.
I'm 35. I'm about to be 36 in November, and it really helps my business coaching career to look 12. Super helpful. Dudes love to learn from someone who looks 15. No, it really doesn't help at all. But at the end of the day, I'm grateful I take care of myself. Ultimately, I started out when I was 2, my father passed away when he was 28. I'm a math thinker, so everything's numbers for me. So I'll just kind of chronologically play this out.
Absolutely.
And we can go into the modalities of thinking too, because that's been fascinating to realize that math is the rarest, and that's why we feel like weirdos, for those of you who have math modality thinking. But ultimately, at age 2, my father passed away at 28. I had a sister who was 6, mom who was 31. Had a stepfather named Steve Lazaros. So my last name, my actual last name, my birth last name is McCorkle. And John McCorkle was my father, and he was part of a big Irish Catholic family. So it was Jim, Joe, John, Jane, Joan, Jeanette. 6 kids. He was one of 6. And he passed away when he was 28 in a car accident. My stepfather is Steve Lazaros. And when we were trying to become the Lazaroses, when I took my stepfather's last name, we didn't really associate much with the McCorkles anymore. And so there's that identity stuff there too. But I didn't know any of this at the time. Again, hindsight's 2020. I started doing therapy in my 30s, and it's obvious now. But at the time, I had no freaking idea what was going on. Okay, so take my stepfather's last name. We're the Lazaroses. Stepfather leaves when I'm 14. Hardest year of my life. Didn't know it at the time. Only in reflection is this very clear. 14, stepdad leaves, takes 90% of the income with him. So before that, from 3 to 14, I call my life boats and BS. Snowmobiles, Ducati, mom drives a BMW, we have a yacht, we own another apartment building. And this is like mid to late 90s, .com bubble time. Stepfather works for a company called AGFA at the time. The hospital computers during the .com bubble, 90s, were very, very, very abundant in the US in particular.
Yep.
And so it was ski trips and deep sea fishing, and we had a yacht, and it was just, in my opinion, a lot of frolicking, vacations and early Xbox Dreamcast. But my mom and stepdad did not get along, and that's a very kind way to put it on a public medium. Okay. And they had a party pleasure-centered paradigm, so they loved to party. And so you guys can extrapolate what that means. And all their friends like to party. Like attracts like. So there's that. Stepfather leaves, takes 90% of the income with him. We go from, he gets the yacht and the apartment building, we get the house and the dog. And we go from Xbox Dreamcast ski trips to I get free lunch at school now because our income is so low. Mm-hmm. I go from I can't wait to get into college. So my dream was to go to WPI. It's like a mini MIT, Worcester Polytechnic Institute. It's one of the best engineering colleges in the world. It's tech school. And it's $50,000 a year. And this is back then.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was, I went from I can't wait to get into my dream college to even if I do get in, how the hell am I going to go? And so anyways, after that, things got very different. My trauma response, so 14 was the hardest year of my life. Stepdad left, took his entire extended family with him. Haven't seen a single one of them since. Birth father's family, we don't really talk to anymore because we were the Lazaroses, quote unquote. Same year, my mom gets in a fight with my Aunt Sandy, her sister, and my aunt ostracizes us from her side of the family. So I kind of lost 3 families by the time I'm 14. Same year, sister moves out with her older boyfriend. So it's just me and my mom in that house, solo dolo. So I kind of become the man of the house, quote unquote, at 14, but I don't know what the hell that means. And that was just hard times. Mom trades in her BMW for a little Honda Civic. I get free lunch at school now. I don't know how I'm going to go to college. So this is the part where I'll get back to the 3 advantages. Number 1 was self-belief. Number 2 was, I think I've always been gifted. And that's scary as hell to share, by the way, which is why I know it's true. and then the third one is I was born in a country that invested in my brain. Thank you, Massachusetts, because I got financial aid and scholarships to go to college that I never would have been able to go to. So I got straight A's. So when adversity strikes, this will be for everybody listening, you have trauma response, fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. I became this appeasing, fawn, social coward, but behind the scenes when no one was watching, I was the most driven, effing super achiever you could imagine. And I just decided it's over. Like there's no trust fund. There's no dad. There's no future family. I'm not if it's going to be, it's up to me. And I have to do, like, we are screwed if I don't do something. And so fight was my trauma response, not fight anyone else, but fight to be, it was aim higher, work harder, get smarter. That was my trauma response. Aim higher, work harder, get smarter. And so I got straight A's through all of high school. I got behind me, it's called the President's Award. It's signed by George W. Bush. You have to have a 95 or above GPA on all report cards through all of high school. I got tons of financial aid and scholarships, bunch of awards. And I got to go to college, and I got my computer engineering degree, and then I got my master's in business, and then it was off to the races. It was iRobot and Sensata Technologies and Oz Development and all these different tech companies. And then eventually I went for a company called Cognex. Cognex sells industrial automation equipment into manufacturing facilities all across the world. I did inside sales engineering, started a little team there, and then I got promoted to outside sales engineer. And then I managed a territory of Connecticut, Vermont, and Western Massachusetts. I'm on the road. I'm selling machine vision equipment into the biggest manufacturing facilities in Connecticut, mostly Connecticut, but Vermont as well. Big companies you would know the name of. And I'm doing very, very well. I'm making almost $200,000 a year. I don't have kids. I don't have a mortgage. My rent is $500 with my girlfriend at the time named Courtney. We live on a lake. And I am super successful, but deeply unfulfilled. And I thought wealth was the answer, because when my stepdad left, lack of money caused pain. So I thought wealth was the answer. So I invested it all. ETFs, stocks, mostly tech companies that I knew would win. And again, I now realize how weird that sounds, but I know where tech's going. I'm in automation. So it's like, hey, no brainers. And then so ultimately I was just winning, car accident. So then I get in my own car accident. I'm in my mid-20s. I'm 26 years old. This is back in 2015. And I'm up in New Hampshire with my little cousin. Actually, the only cousin who ever came back from my mother's side, his name's Jeff. His son, Dan, is in the car with me. And that's to this day. Of all those families, we reassociated with my birth father's side a little bit after my stepdad left. Haven't seen my stepdad or that family at all. And then my mom's side, not a single person except for Jeff and my second cousin, Dan. So Dan's in the car with me. We're going to TGI Fridays. I'm supposed to be, dark winter night 2015, snowbank is covering the yield sign. I'm supposed to yield. I don't. I end up on the wrong side of the road. My fault. Two things saved my life. Number one, I look up in front of me. Biggest, brightest lights I'd ever seen. I thought it was a Mack truck, and I thought for sure that was the end. I was driving a 2004 Volkswagen Passat. Thank you, Volkswagen. That I used to call the tank. I bought it for $5,000 cash. All I wanted to do was invest all my money and get wealthy. And that car totally saved my life. Both airbags deployed, and this is not a fender bender. And the other thing that saved my life is it was not a Mack truck. It was a lift-kitted pickup truck.
Okay.
And so I've seen pictures of my dad's car. I've seen pictures of my car. They don't look very different. But the Volkswagen, the whole front was completely smashed in, but the frame totally stayed, and the airbags deployed. So we were physically pretty much fine. I mean, he hurt his knee on the airbag. I hurt my face on the airbag, but physically we're okay.
Yeah.
Mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, though, my dad died at 28. This is the second chance my dad never got. I'm 26, just questioning, existential quarter-life crisis, Phoenix burned down, ego death, everything I think I know about myself and all the stuff from my past, the traumas that I hadn't faced, all the bad decisions, the alcohol, the drugs, the nonsense, honestly. Just nonsense. What a bunch of crap all that was, right? So I just had my quarter life crisis way earlier than most people. And I'm grateful for that. So that was 9 years ago, almost 10. And after that, it was self-improvement, personal development, fitness. Before 26, it's obvious now, I was professionally developed, resume, cover letter, LinkedIn, computer engineer. I was improvement oriented. I was achievement oriented. But I wasn't self-improvement oriented. It wasn't about making me better. It wasn't from the inside out. It was from the outside in. And after that, I flipped the script, actually went broke. But I was super fulfilled from the inside out and achieved my dream of being a fitness model. I was a fitness competitor. I was the healthiest looking dude you've ever seen. After pre-26, I looked like crap. And I actually thought, this is actually really funny in hindsight, I thought being better was going to help my social life. it got exponentially worse. I mean, and that's one thing that I'll share here because no one else, maybe they don't have the courage to say it or maybe they don't know it. I don't know. But the better you become physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, and I mean really, like the better you become, the harder it is to not trigger other people's insecurities. Most people are wildly insecure and they will energetically lash out and they won't want to be around you. I mean, I had college friends and high school friends and corporate friends and I partied and I don't have, I mean, my circle got real small real quick. And I think that was the most naive thing, is thinking that becoming a better man was actually going to improve my relationships. I think it improved some relationships, but for the most part, I became significantly less popular.
And then from there,
yeah. So started a company after 26 called Alan Lazaros LLC. What you'll never learn in school, but desperately need to know. Desperately was in caps, and my goal was to be a inspirational and motivational and educational speaker at colleges and high schools. I wanted to bring personal development to schools. Mm-hmm. That was a terrible idea. Especially with that slogan, right? Good luck getting speeches at high schools and colleges with that slogan. So I ended up starting a podcast called Conversations Change Lives, because I was just trying to figure out, like, how did I make it out? Why? And make it out is metaphorical, but also literal. And what made the difference? Like, why aren't any of my friends as successful as me? What is the deal here, right? And I thought that the answer was mentors. I had so many mentors and coaches. And in hindsight, honestly, I actually think that, you know how as you get older, you reflect back and you realize that some mentors really did know what they were talking about, and they get better and better and better. It's like a movie you rewatch when you saw it as a kid and it got even better. Very few, though. Most of my mentors and coaches, I realize in hindsight, they didn't know a lick of what they were talking about. And so that's been brutal for me. The pedestal falls. I think unconsciously I was always looking for a male role model because I didn't have a dad. Kevin didn't either. And now in hindsight, it's very clear. But ultimately, started a little podcast called Conversations Change Lives. Kev was my first guest. I was his first guest on the Hyperconscious podcast, and that was 7 years ago. And now we rebranded from Hyperconscious Podcast, because at first it was Conversations Change Lives meets Hyperconscious Podcast. did that for like 20 episodes. Terrible.
Yeah.
Went all in on the Hyperconscious Podcast. Change the way you think, change the way you act, change the way you live. And then we rebranded 600 or so episodes in to Next Level University. And now we have a 22-person team, 21 actually as of yesterday or 2 days ago, 21-person team, global, heard in 175 countries. And he's a podcast coach. I'm a business coach. Some podcasters want to start a business. Some business owners want to start a podcast, and they feed each other. But it's all about self-improvement, success, and fulfillment. Ultimately, is helping people reach their potential, the next level of their life, love, health, and wealth. But we didn't start there. At the beginning, we started with a couple guys who both had quarter life crises and who wanted to reinvent their life and reinvent themselves and take people on that journey with us. And we've learned a lot over the years.
Yeah, it's incredible because I'm at this point in my life where I got a young family. I have some friends that are doing the same thing, kind of young family in the same ages, the kids. Then I have some friends that don't have kids. And it's amazing to see our conversations and where we stand in life, in work, in career. Nothing, again, going similar to what we discussed before, where nothing is cookie cutter, like nothing is cookie cutter. You know what I mean? When I was younger in high school, I might have thought, getting a good job, having a nice house in the suburbs, having healthy kids, like that's what it's all about. And it's I'm very appreciative of it, but it is interesting how we view life, where I still feel like there is something there's like an itch that I need to get to. So whereas before this would have been it and I would have been completely fulfilled, there's something more that I'm building up towards. So I appreciate that you guys share that you had these, quarter life crisis and you turned it around and now you're trying to do that for other people. Alan, I'm always curious, and we've spoken a lot about your childhood, but specifically for this question that I always ask, I'm interested to get your take. Does it make sense from your childhood that this is what you're doing? How do you reconcile that? Not that this is specifically what you're doing, but that who you were as a kid. Because I'm always fascinated by how most of my clients, by the time they get to the point where they're fulfilled in their leadership in their life, it's because they've kind of gone back to their childhood and picked that kid up and like brought him forward. Like enough of
100%.
the societal programming, the bullshit, like you had value when you were younger, you had value of wonder, of curiosity. How do you reconcile where you are now to who you were as a kid?
So there's a great book called Same as Ever by Morgan Housel. As a big book guy, it's right behind me. We just did it in our book club. It talks about how you need to study the things that never change. And so this is a question I used to ask way back when we had guests on the Hyperconscious podcast. I would ask, what about, we grow, we evolve, we change, we innovate, but there's certain things about us that never change. And I tell my clients this all the time. Don't design your career on something fleeting. Don't design your career on Clubhouse. Like, what are we doing? Social media will always be a thing. TikTok might not, right? So, and that's a metaphor. So for me to reconcile the thing, I've been coaching people my whole life. I mean, the amount of people I've tried to drag uphill is, I want to punch myself in the face. Like, I'm so mad at the amount of time and effort that I invested into people who didn't have humility and didn't want help. I wanted to save my family. I wanted to save my neighborhood. I wanted to save my friends. I wanted to help them quit drinking and quit smoking like I did. And I wanted to help them achieve. I remember my best friend in high school, we were both going to go to WPI together. And he didn't get in. And I know why, because he's lazy. He's more than smart enough.
Yeah.
He's just freaking lazy. And I now realize in hindsight that I had dreams. I believed in people more than they believed in themselves. And I realize why. You can't give away what you don't have. I believe in people to such a drastic extent. And what is coaching, right? It's believing in people. And when you believe in someone, you believe in their potential, you can help ignite that potential. The problem is they have to believe it too. And so ultimately as a kid, I was the ridiculously driven, outgoing, competitive, driven guy who just wanted to win at everything and wanted to get good at everything and loved the process of mastery. I mean, I don't care if it was can jam or if it was fishing or if it was snowboarding or if it was basketball. I love getting good at stuff. I love it. And I never understood why other people didn't want to. It never made any sense to me. And now I realize in hindsight, and this is just the truth, I had a lot more self-belief than everybody else. Now, is that because I had quantum abilities they didn't have, or because I was somehow, the story I told myself was that I could do what I set my mind to? I don't know. I think it's probably both. That's actually a quarter-life crisis. I guess when I was 31 or 32, I started to wonder. I wonder if people believe in themselves the amount they're supposed to. Because not everyone's going to be Einstein. Not everyone's going to be LeBron James. Not everyone's going to be Elon Musk. Not everyone's going to... And I don't associate me with any of them, by the way, because some of them are not great people. But the point is what if... Like, I don't believe I can win a strongman competition. No chance. No matter how hard I work. I'm, like, kind of weak. It's obnoxious. I've been weight training for 10 years.
Every person has, like, their thing, right? I mean... And I think the problem most people have is like they look to the other person on this side, the person on that side. What are they doing? Okay, let me try that. But I think and this kind of plays into this conversation, and we can go on for hours about this. But I think so much of life is, I think if you're doing it right, you're working in that direction of what you're being called to. And I think much like what you've said, people, their belief lacks, so they may think they are confident in themselves underneath the surface. They're not, but they don't even know what that means. They don't even know to ask themselves what that means. They think maybe, like I talked about the script before, like getting a job, having the family, all that is sufficient, but they haven't explored themselves. They haven't done the inner work to figure out what drives them. I mean, it's just a
That
fascinating conversation because you have to think so many people out there haven't even considered that your success, your fulfillment is outside of your nice house in the suburbs, or they say, I do know that this is what I want to do, but I don't have time for that because I have these other commitments. Again, and we could go through so many different scenarios because like we've talked about, there's that nuance. Everybody has like their own story, their own life story.
And the other piece of it too is, and I've coached enough people at this point where I used to be so naive that I thought everyone could be successful. And the truth of the matter is, the harsh truth is, there are certain people that, listen, you got to change. Like, you can't be a podcaster. You're not a strong enough speaker. Me on my worst day is a stronger speaker than this person who's trying to start a podcast. And I don't want to be the bearer of bad news. But if you don't have any talent or inclination whatsoever, you need to switch. What is the thing? And this is the Venn diagram. So, of course, because it's so esoteric, I need to make a system. Otherwise, my brain will explode.
Yeah.
The Venn diagram is simple. It's these three things. Number one, what is meaningful work for you in the service of others? What is meaningful work for you in the service of others?
Mm-hmm.
Number two is, what are you ridiculously good at statistically?
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, if I line 100 people up in a room, you're in the top 1%. And if you're top 10%, we'll do that. Top 10%.
Yeah.
Okay? Top 10%. And number three is, what will the world actually pay you for? And that's the hard one. Listen, I love coaching all day. I love fulfillment. I love it. That's what I do. I can help you get aligned. And I think fulfillment is alignment with one's true calling. Here's the thing. No one cares, Alan. No one's going to pay you for fulfillment coaching. But business coaching is the thing people want and they know they need. What they actually need underneath that is alignment, and to find out who they really are, and to find out what about them never changed, and the conversation that's esoteric that you and I are having. That's what people really need. They need the quarter-life existential crisis that I had, but not a car accident.
Yeah.
They need the existential questions of, why am I here? What am I actually good at? And more importantly, what do I suck at? What am I so unreasonably bad at? So Kevin and I came to this. We realized I'm spending my life, because there's a little part of me that wants to be as likable and relatable as him. And he's spending his life, wants to be as respected and admired and as intelligent as me. It's like, listen, brother, we could spend the rest of our life trying to be each other. It's never going to work. And you're not going to ever be
But
that.
it's good that you have that each of you has that partner to bounce that off of.
Well, one of the things that I love about Kev is he's about truth. My top three core values, one of them is candor.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And candor is a commitment to objective truth. People say, well, no, that's your truth. No, that's the truth. And as an engineering thinker, 2 + 2 is always 4. I don't care what your opinion is. And I understand that there's emotions. I understand that it's difficult to look at hard truths. But if you don't, you're like a GPS that has inaccurate data. You're just going to keep running into the wall. Picture a self-driving car that has the wrong data about itself, wrong current location, inaccurate destination location, and inaccurate data about the mountains and streams and the roads. It's just going to keep running into the wall and then blame the world. And I think that's what most people do, is they just think wildly and accurately about themselves, others, and the world. And so to bring this back to your original question of, as a kid, I just cared. When I was a kid, I was a lot less bashful. And I think this got beaten out of me, both literally and figuratively. I was bullied a lot. I stopped telling the truth. I stopped.
Self-preservation.
Right. So when a girl asks you,
oh God,
hey, do I look fat in this? And you say yes, level 6 out of 10, that doesn't go well. And the truth is, that's what I actually think. I actually think, yeah, you do actually kind of look fat in that. I'm not trying to be mean. I look fat too. I look like shit too.
Yeah.
But people see you as this mean person, when in reality you're just trying to actually help people get accurate data. If you're overweight and think you're not, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Like, that's not constructive, right?
Absolutely.
And so as an engineer and a math thinker, you kind of learn to hide this part of you that really does.
Yeah, you have to kind of conform in those hopefully limited public moments to social norms.
It's brutal.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, it's a touchy subject. It's a touchy subject. Um, yeah, I've been overweight all my life. So it's always interesting to hear those conversations in the public arena about when people get mad at a celebrity that's gone from overweight to in shape, and they see that as a bad thing. Like they cancel that person. Like, how dare you? Fat is beautiful. This and that. It's like the conversations that can take place in those spheres are just amazing. That's all I'll say for that point.
Even
Um,
there, you see how you can't tell any truth? Isn't it brutal? You got to dance around it. It's
yeah,
irrational.
yeah,
It,
yeah,
it it is constructive to say I am an alcoholic and
yeah,
I need help.
absolutely.
It is constructive to say I am overweight and I
Hmm.
need help. It is constructive to say I'm not smart enough yet. It is
Yeah, and I kind of pause on what I'm saying because I'm like you, where I'll tell the truth, but it's not you're this, you're that, and I'm perfect at all. You're this,
yeah.
you're that. This is what I see. Let's sit down. This is what I see, and this is
What's the
why. It's
data?
not. It's not a matter of ego. It's not a matter of condescension. It's not me trying to be better than you. I want to tell you the truth. I want to tell, and it doesn't happen that often. But I think when you do something like that, or where you are honest about something, it is about nuance. It is about consideration. So if I do it here, it's like I say the thing, and then I move on. There's no area for me to really speak to that nuance. That's why I don't want somebody thinking that he's
Right.
just saying it, and there's no consideration or there's no discussion behind it.
Yeah.
Uh,
And it looks like there's no empathy, but there is.
exactly.
And
Exactly.
now imagine this, you're committed to helping people reach their potential and you struggle to give people hard truth.
Yeah.
That was my life. And
Hmm.
fortunately now I have private one-on-one coaching sessions where I say I care more about your success and your fulfillment than your feelings.
Hmm.
And in the moment, I still care about your feelings too. I am the only one, and I say this too, and I'll be brief about this, but I say I'm the only one who cares enough. I said, no one cares if you're successful. See how I'm whispering? No one cares if you're successful.
Hmm.
No one cares if you reach your potential. They're actually better off if you don't, because then you're less of a mirror. I actually want you to reach your potential. I actually do. And that's why I'm willing to risk our relationship by saying the thing that you know that you know that you know that you know is true, but you wish it wasn't.
Yeah.
And my best coach I've ever had, his name was Alex. He told me that he was so harsh, but everything he said was true. And he helped me more than anyone else. And I
Yeah.
reached out to him and I said, thank you. He actually canned me because I was 2 minutes late several times in a row. And
But
I
that's
don't
one of
blame
those
him.
things, like you're
Yeah.
late, there's respect, there's courtesy, there's accountability. It's much like you saying there are people that don't want to do the work, and you don't want to
Yep.
work with people that can't do the work.
I don't blame him.
Showing up late is like, okay, this
Yep.
person doesn't want to do the work.
He should have
Um,
canned me. I don't blame
a-
him.
and
I don't.
it is one of those phoenix rising from the ashes thing, where it's like sometimes it does take those moments of candor. Let's cut the bullshit. Let's cut the social norms. Let's cut what's safe. Physically safe, yes, but like
Mm-hmm.
psychologically safe within reason.
Yep.
Let's get to the truth of the matter, because that's the foundation that we should be working on. We shouldn't be working on a false foundation, just to stroke up your ego, just to stroke up my ego. That's why I appreciate that radical candor, just because it's like, okay, let's sweep away all the BS. Let's get down to what is really there. Then that's the most solid foundation we can work off of.
And that's what the car accident did for me. I'll go brief with this, but I have these three, I call them the three circles of the ego, and I think you'll enjoy this a lot. The outer circle, picture a pufferfish. The outer circle, a pufferfish with three circles. The outer circle is who you want others to believe you are. That's the social media post.
Hmm.
That's the nice car without talking about the car payment. That's the Instagram photo. Okay? That's the Instagram photo on vacation on the beach, but not the photo of you with puke in your lap on the plane with the kid, right? That
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Okay, so that's who you want others to believe you are. Then the next circle in is who you want to believe you are. The innermost circle is who you really are. This is who you are when no one's watching. My goal in life is to make all three of those circles the same, because I was the least fulfilled when they weren't. The car accident collapsed those circles. I faced all my pain and regret at once. And I just try really, 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 really hard now to keep those three circles the same. And
Yeah,
I
that
think
reminds me of
that's
that
the
book,
foundation.
The Courage to Be Disliked.
Yeah, that one. Yep. We
Yeah,
did that
that
one in book
reminds
club as well.
me. Yeah, just the circles and collapsing them so that who you are in private is who you're really out there. That reminds me of that book.
It
But
takes so much courage to do that. It takes so much courage to actually be who you really are.
yeah,
But it's
absolutely.
something that we all intuitively admire, I think.
Yeah, Alan, when it comes to you, briefly, just so we can jump into the book, what does leadership mean to you?
You know, someone asked me on a podcast one time, and they said, who were your role models growing up? And I had coaches and mentors, one of them, Alex, that I mentioned. There have been some really good ones. But for the most part, when I look back, I am very disappointed. I don't think there was a lot of strong... You asked me earlier about my childhood and how that led me here. You want to know the real reason why I'm obsessed with self-improvement? There wasn't a lick of self-improvement in my childhood. Not a lick. I mean, you couldn't go near self-improvement with a 10-foot pole. You know those... Imagine being at a holiday event and you're with extended family and you just can't go anywhere near a meaningful conversation. I call them bobbers. They can't go beneath the surface about anything because everyone's so insecure, right? So,
Yeah.
can't talk about that. Oh, can't talk about that. Oh, can't talk about that. So self-improvement was not any aspect of my childhood. And so in hindsight, when I look back, I see all these people that gave me advice and blah, blah, blah. Disappointed. I'm wildly disappointed. And so the original question, what was it again? I'm sorry, I completely...
No. What does leadership mean to you?
Leading by example. There was so many people who gave me advice. And then when I look back, oh my goodness. Thank you so much for giving me advice that you never, ever did. Ever. If you're not leading by example, shut up. Honestly. Listen, I've been tracking habits every day for 10 years. I'm not telling anyone to track habits if I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
I've exercised every day for 2.5 years. I haven't missed a single day. I'm actually scared to even say it because it's become this weird thing. It's like most people can't even do a week. You do 2.5 years. Oh, you're so great. Listen, I'm leading by example. My team, half of them have fitness streaks going. Some of them are past 1.5 years. I have one team member who's run a mile a day. He calls it miles for mindset. I'm not kidding. He's on like day 700.
Yeah.
It's awesome. But here's the truth. And this is the weird thing about leadership. No one achieves anything on their own great. Everyone needs a team, but one person can make a team better.
Yeah.
And that's the duality I try to hold. Listen, it's not all about me, and I am definitely not going to be able to achieve these goals and dreams without a great team. But I can make the team better through my own example. So one player can make a team great, but no one player can win a championship. And I think that's a duality that no one ever taught me, that I wish I knew, because you can set the standard and you can set the pace in your own example when no one's watching, because trust me, people are watching. And if you're not leading by example, just shut up.
Yeah. So, Alan, at this point, let's jump into the book. And the book that you're going to cover is The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. Usually I let the guest introduce it, but I just bring it up because I had a guest talk about it previously, episode 9, all the way back in September 2021. Greg Hammond, a friend of mine, came on to discuss that book. And people have asked, is it okay to repeat a book? And my take on that is, yeah, because no two people are going to view the book the same. They'll have the general idea. They'll express the general idea of the book, but their takeaways, the way that they put it, the way that they share it with other people will be different. So can you go into the book itself? What made you want to read it? What did you take away from the book?
So the compound effect in many regards is the polar opposite of what I grew up in. What I grew up in was chaos. It was running amok. It was no direction, no goals, no dreams, no metrics, no habits, no personal development, no self-improvement. So the compound effect to me, obviously it's the small, seemingly insignificant daily choices that accumulate over time and compound to massive results. That's sort of the bumper sticker phrase of it.
Mm-hmm.
But when I found this book, it affirmed everything I already knew deep inside me. It affirmed the mathematic thinking that I do, because a lot of people, they want results, and that's great. And I call it the want, love, hate framework. You want to be in shape, you love weight training, but you hate dieting. And trust me too, I love weight training. I hate dieting, can't stand it. But if you don't do what you hate, you're not going to be able to have what you want. And that's a scientific mathematical fact. I can break down anyone's want, love, hate. Want a mansion on the beach. Love, making money. Hate tracking expenses. Okay, well, guess what? You don't get a mansion on the beach if you don't track expenses, right? I can do that with everybody. As a matter of fact, what I do with each client is I take their top 3 priorities and I do want, love, hate underneath each of them, and then we track the things they hate. And then they win. What a coincidence. The things that you've been avoiding are the things that makes perfect sense. So, or you can delegate them, which is also a whole other thing. But back to the compound effect. I had a client, his name's Cole, first name only. He said, hey man, I want to go weekly. And I said, brother, that's a great choice. I'm excited. I do weekly, I do bi-weekly, I do monthly coaching. I kind of don't like monthly because it's like, hey, catch me up. And by 40 minutes in, it's, okay, now we can start the coaching.
I made that mistake starting out,
And the only reason is it's kind of it's a ladder. You start with monthly, go to bi-weekly, eventually get to weekly. And I'm a lot to handle because I'm very intense, and this is me dialed down, if anything. But ultimately, he went from bi-weekly to weekly. And I said, dude, best decision ever. Let me show you the math. And this goes back to the compound effect.
Mm-hmm.
Financial calculator, bookmarked, boom, click it right in front of him. I say, okay, 52 weeks a year. We're going to go out a decade. I'm going to put $1 in this financial calculator, $1. And we're going to go out a decade, 52 weeks a year. So that's 520. So 10 times 52, 520, $1 in the financial calculator. I said, now, here's my goal in coaching. I want to help you improve yourself by 1% per week. I want to help you improve your system of success, metrics and habits, by 1% per week. And then I want you to improve your execution of that system by 1% per week. Do you think it's possible to improve by 3% per week? Do you think it's possible? And he said, yeah, man, let's rock. I said, okay, let me show you what happens. $1 in a financial calculator, anyone can go do this. 3% per week for 520 weeks comes to $4.7 million.
Mm-hmm.
You are 4.7 million times better if you improve by 3% per week. Now, here's the crazy part, and this is wild. You want to know what separates the Oprah Winfreys from the person you don't know? I found out Oprah did the Oprah show for over a decade without missing a single show. Not once. She didn't miss. Never sick, never missed, nothing. Okay. The difference between the Oprah and the person who is unknown, if I go bi-weekly instead of weekly, that's 226 weeks a year. So 52 divided by 2 is 26. 26 weeks a year for a decade, 260 instead of 520. Instead of 4.7 million, guess what it comes to?
I don't know, much less. Just, and I know that's a ridiculous response, but just we take for granted the compound effect, so and just that ripple effect out.
Instead of 4.7 million times better, $4.7 million, $1 starting, it comes to $2,400.
Really?
That's the difference between someone who does weekly and bi-weekly, and that's the reason we do an episode a day. We produce 50 podcasts, 50. None of them are even close to us. And the reason why is just the frequency. That's why I exercise every day. That's why I track habits every day. That's why I track metrics every day. That's why I coach weekly as much as humanly possible. That's why I podcast and we have 1,800 episodes. If you think I'm even reasonably good at communicating, trust me, I did not start that way.
Yeah.
But I'm 7 years in, 9 years technically. And I'm reasonable now, but I was garbage in the beginning. I look at the old episodes and I cringe. So that's the compound effect, and that's the real reason the book is powerful. It's not because of Darren. It's not because the book is perfectly written. It's because that concept is hands down the most powerful concept on planet Earth.
Is there a part of the book, Alan, that stood out for you that was kind of like the aha moment, aside from the visualization, especially for you, of the 1% and the daily or the weekly or the yearly? Is there something else aside from that percentage that stood out for you?
Yeah, Darren breaks down personal responsibility really well. And he also breaks down the ripple effect of how one thing ripples into everything. So you think that it's, okay, well, I can miss this one workout, but it ripples into your self-esteem. And then that ripples into everything you do and don't do in that day, right? So the difference between a great day and a decent day over time is the difference between $4.7 million and $2,400. But
is it really that?
Is it? Yeah, go do it.
Because I was like, okay, 4.7 billion, and you're saying, okay, bi-weekly. I'm like, okay, it can't be half, because we were talking about a ripple effect going out that many years. I'm like, okay, maybe hundreds of thousands, but that
you got to do it. Everyone look up a financial calculator, and you can't just take my word on it. You got to go do this. This is math. Math doesn't lie. Statistics and math don't lie. Research can, the way you analyze the data can, but math doesn't lie. And that's
hard math.
Hard math. You put $1 in a financial calculator, grow it by 3% for 520 weeks, and then
versus
cut that to 260.
Okay.
Yeah, 26 weeks a year versus 52 weeks a year, which is bi-weekly versus weekly. And let's just say I have more weekly clients now.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good selling proposition.
For them, and all of them are. One of them's an AP Calc teacher. He's like, dude, I gotta go weekly. It's like, yeah, I know. But anyway, so the other thing that he did a really good job of is the personal responsibility piece. And here's the weird thing. I have a sister, and we grew up both of us in a really tough environment. Not gonna sugarcoat it. It was terrible. Just terrible. There was some good parts. Like if my mom was listening right now, would that be hard to say? Yes. It was terrible. Now, there was some good parts. Okay. Here's the deal. Her life didn't end up anywhere near mine in terms of health, wealth, life, and love. I'll just say that. Okay. And again, I love my sister. I've been wondering my whole life what made the difference. I've been trying to figure out, like, why do I make these choices and someone else in the same situation makes these other choices?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it comes down to self-belief. And I think it's an unconscious belief in oneself. If you don't believe in yourself, why would adversity be an advantage? Because if you don't believe you can quit drinking, why would hitting rock bottom actually help? It can help if you have humility and then you go get help. But then what happens when you're on your own again?
Does she have that aptitude for math that you do?
No. I'm convinced that saved my life.
I think so too, because I mean, math is math, right? There's the formulas, to lay it out very, very generically, very simply. If you do this and you do this, you get this.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So if you break that formula, you don't get that same outcome that you know what? So math is very formulaic. It tells you this is what you have to do to this to get to that point. So, I mean, I'm not inside your mind. I don't view the world that you do, but I can imagine that because it's very math driven, it's just like, okay, what is logical? If I want to achieve a goal, how many weeks do I have to do what? How do I have to diet? If anything in that formula is different, it's not going to add out to that. It's not going to add up to that output that I need. So, I mean, for me, that's the way I view it. It's just you are very formulaic, where you know what you want to get to, and you know what has to go into that formula 100%. In whatever endeavor, whether it's life, business, relationships, whatever it is.
That is, Kevin and I have been trying to figure this out for 7 years, because he read a book one time that I recommended to him called Algorithms to Live By. It's a computer scientist's approach to behavior change. Great book, by the way. If you haven't read it, I mean, it's awesome. Chaos theory, constraint theory, all this cool stuff. And again, I'm a nerd, but whatever. All right, so he hated the book. He thinks it's terrible. But he thinks it's awesome in terms of the learning. He thinks it's boring. And he comes to me, I swear to you, he says, Alan, you think like this? And I'm not kidding. This is how freaking ignorant I was. I said, Kevin,
Don't you?
you don't?
Yeah.
I can't even imagine what my life would be like winging it. I've never been winging it. I mean, I've
That's
calculated.
why.
My
It's just the
whole
way
day
you're
is calculated.
programmed. Yeah, that's the way you're programmed.
I told Kevin this one time. I said, dude, I don't wake up in the morning and do what I want. And he's like, what? I said, that's not even in my consideration set.
Yeah.
And that's one of the hard truths that I'll share with everybody here. It doesn't, when it comes to your goals, don't really care what you want. Like if you want a mansion on the beach, it doesn't matter what you feel like. You won't get it unless X, Y, Z. It is a formula. I told my mom this early on. She came to me. She said, why is being intelligent matter so much to you? Why can't it be enough to just be nice? And I remember my first thought was, that's a really dumb question. Intelligence is by far the most. What's the difference between us and a dog? I mean, we're intelligent, right? We can project into the future and predict outcomes in advance. Scientists call this projection. But I come off as such a dick. So it's like, I said, what's the difference between a smartphone and a dumb phone? The smartphone is more capable, right? So, and I told her, and this was my actual answer in my early 20s. Now, keep in mind, this is my immature 20-year-old ego version. I said, Mom, I look around. I said, I'm trying to figure out how to not end up old and miserable like everybody else. I'm trying to figure out the formula to not end up old and miserable like everybody else. And I used the word formula. And so I do think that's what it is. And by the way, Kev says you believe in yourself so much. It's, brother, I don't know if I believe in myself so much. I think I have mathematical certainty. I didn't hope it was going to work out. I'm not like hoping.
Yeah, I don't. That's a good point. I don't think it is belief in yourself. You just know that there's a process. It's either follow the process and get to where you want to go, or don't.
And then tweak the process.
That's interesting. And tweak it as you need to go along. Things evolve. But it's funny you bring that up. Like, I don't know if it's belief. It's just certainty. There's the things. There's the equations, the formulas you want to put out. You want to lay out to get to that outcome. That's interesting. You put it like that.
And it's replicable. If anyone's out there right now and you want to achieve a goal, I can give you the formula. And I'll do this quick. It's not that hard. I mean, again, Kevin's like, dude, it is hard because you don't know what you have that other people don't. So the formula is simple, but it's not easy, I guess. Okay, if you have a goal, write the goal, whatever it is. 10 pounds in 10 weeks. Boom. Okay, here you need 3 things. This is it. You need to track the right metrics. You need the right habits. And then you need the right identity. Metrics. Track your weight every day. Track your calories every day. Make sure you're in a caloric deficit. 3,500 calories per pound. You need to do that per week. So what? You need to be in a 400 calorie deficit per day. That's not that hard to do. Now you have to exercise 200 calories and then eat 200 calories less. Right? And then, okay, so it's a formula. Okay, so that's the metrics. Then the habit is exercise daily and eat more leafy greens or whatever. I'm just making stuff up. But you sleep well, whatever. Sleep, hydration, nutrition, training, mobility, breathwork, supplementation. That's my pyramid of fitness. And then the third one is identity. This is the one people do not know how to do. This is the conundrum. I asked Kevin one time, I said, Kev, do you identify as an achiever? And he said, no. And I said, dude, isn't it fascinating how you've come to me and you talk about all these things you want to achieve, but yet you've never identified as an achiever? And he's like, yeah, I never thought about that before. I said, brother, don't you think you do more achiever shit if you identified as an achiever? You're not.
Yeah. Because I think that was mentioned also in that book, Atomic Habits, where he said, like, if you're going in a certain direction, if you want to quit smoking and somebody offers you a cigarette, don't say, I'm trying to quit smoking. Just say, I don't smoke.
I'm not a smoker.
I'm not a smoker. Like,
not a smoker.
Like that identity. Yeah.
But here's the problem. The action, the behavior is a vote for the identity. So we get stuck in this loop of, I don't have the identity, so I don't take the action. And then when you don't take the action, you never develop the identity.
Yeah.
So what I'm really doing in coaching is, here's your goal, here's the metrics and habits, and then, by the way, I'm going to pepper in the identity to make sure you actually do. Because I've had clients who, as soon as they leave, they lose all of it. And it's, what happened? They never had the identity.
That's a very good point.
Yeah. And that goes back to the original thing of the limiting beliefs, cognitive behavioral therapy of I'm not good enough. If the record is I'm not good enough, if you coach with me, I can override that every week, but it's going to go
Yeah.
back to I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough. And then you're going to go back to your homeostasis, which is your comfort zone, which is I'm lazy, I'm not an achiever, I'm blah, blah, blah. And then you're going to reinforce those beliefs.
Yeah.
If you feel lazy, it's going to make you feel like crap. And then what are you going to do? Be more lazy. If I know I'm an achiever and I know fulfillment is through achievement, I'm going to go achieve, and then it's going to reinforce the belief. So we all are sort of victims of our own consciousness in a way.
I mean, that identity part is huge. The book that I covered with Kevin in our conversation, my conversation with him was mindset.
Yep.
And, it's kind of cliche. It's a buzzword. You see it all around. It's mentioned everywhere. But if somebody sits down with you, with me, whoever it might be, and talks about their mindset, there's probably, and they need help in something, or they've had problems with something, in work, in life, whatever it may be, we can guarantee that it's some kind of problem first with mindset, that they're not in the right mindset. And that's another thing that plays into the whole conversation about what people realize about themselves. If they're fulfilled, if they feel success, are they where they want to be? They don't think about their mindset. So many of us are just reactive, going by life script, working to get the paycheck, to pay for the house, to support the family. If we check all those boxes, we're good. But they don't think about anything beyond that mindset of not just the programming to get the job, to pay the bills, to support the family, to have whatever it may be. But aside from that, what is it that you want? What is it that drives you? Not just the programming, but what is your mindset? So
the questions are how you reprogram.
Yeah.
That's what you just did.
Yeah.
That was asking a question and then getting an answer. And once you get the answer, now you can decide to change your mindset. It's like programming. I'm a computer engineer, so programming a computer, and you've got the operating system, and then you've got the software, and then you've underneath that is the hardware. So the hardware is physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. The hardware is physical.
Yeah.
But the mental, emotional, and spiritual is all operating system and software.
Yes.
And so if you have a strong, capable central nervous system, peripheral nervous system, the rest is all up here. And they're all connected too. So if you physically feel like crap all the time, you're probably going to struggle to do the actions, to do hard things.
Yeah.
You're not going to get on the Stairmaster when you feel like crap. I try to. And I think that's the override. And for anyone, just to make this less esoteric, try to do hard shit. You have to. You have to do hard stuff. Because if you take the easy path, it's always going to roll downhill.
Yeah.
Everything you want in life is always uphill. And I don't care what guru says to go in the path of least resistance. That is some BS. And by the way, they're out of shape for a reason.
Yeah, we're not built for that.
Yeah,
we're not programmed over thousands of millennia to take the easy way out. The easy way out is essentially like the last, 30, 40 years. Like all this within our reach technology that makes things easier and easier. Before that last 50 years, like you had to bust your ass. Go back a couple thousand years, you had to like survive, you had to hunt, you had to defend. Like our bodies are not meant to just sit and do nothing. So you take millennia of that kind of physical programming, and then you just kind of shut it down in the last 30, 25 years with like social media and access to everything around the world. We're just not meant for that. So we're giving up the hard stuff for the easy reach of social media and technology. So I'm with you on that boat.
This has been awesome. I really appreciate it. It's like taking a animal who has instincts and putting them in a cage and they go docile.
Exactly.
We're all in our own metaphorical cage because of all the comfort around us.
Yes. You put it much more eloquently than I did, but exactly.
Well, I appreciate that. But ultimately, I think about that all the time. Yeah. Where am I getting soft? Listen, I look soft. I look like a Ken doll. I get it. You need both. You have to be empathetic to be social. You have to be this kind, warm, loving. I don't want to hurt anyone. But you have to be a sicko behind the scenes. Like it's like The Rock, man. He is such a good example of this. He comes off so soft and loving, but behind the scenes that dude is just an
Yeah.
absolute animal.
He's taking bites out of weight plates and all that stuff.
I know, yeah. And but here's the thing. He comes as this charismatic, fun, playful guy, and people think, oh, well, he's like that. No, he's not like that. There's a speech that everyone owes it to themselves to watch where he talked to the Lakers.
Mm-hmm.
He gave a speech to the LA Lakers, and that's the actual Rock.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm not necessarily a fan. I'm not. I mean,
no, but you realize
yeah.
who's out there, who's doing what.
Exactly.
You're,
Yeah.
you know.
When I was a kid, I looked up to The Rock, and over time, it's been tough. But ultimately, I think as far as male role models go, I'd say he's there. I'll give him that. I respect and admire what he's done in the world. But Absolutely. I'll tell you what, that playful, fun, loving version of him that we get on his persona is not who he is in terms of the execution and the consistency and the discipline and the schedule. And so righty and lefty, right? We all need both. You need to be empathetic.
I think he needs that discipline that gets him in that regimen to help him reach his goals so that he can be that charismatic person that like that freedom through discipline kind of thing.
But everyone's only seeing half the equation.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, he struggles to articulate to the masses what it really takes to be him.
Yeah.
And when you watch the speech that he gave to the Lakers, he didn't hold back a thing.
I got to check that out. I haven't checked it out.
YouTube, it's. I can send it to you. It's one of my go-tos. It's one of my.
I'm
actually afraid they're going to take it off the internet. So.
Oh, okay. Then I definitely got to go check it out today. Alan, thank you so much for joining me today. And again, the book that we covered with Alan was The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. And again, we've covered that in the past, but it's always interesting to get somebody's take on it, especially as it applies to your life. So thank you so much for taking that time with me.
John, this has been awesome. Start with gratitude, end with gratitude. It was a dream at one point to come on and talk and have meaningful conversations with great people about personal development and self-improvement and success and fulfillment and how to be a better version of yourself and how to take personal responsibility. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me. And I love books and I love this stuff. And there's my alarm. And thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
If there's anything I might have missed, anything that you think I should have asked Alan, let me know. Reach out. I'll reach out to him, see what kind of additional insight, guidance, knowledge I can get. In the meantime, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.